Hello, hooray! Welcome to Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Derling. Why that intro? Why not? I am here with Mr. Mike Meadus, aka the Alice Cooper Collector on Instagram, the man that's got more Alice Cooper stuff than anyone that I know. I've had Mike on here before. I think the last time we were on, we reviewed the last album, Road. And here I thought, well, it's about time I did an Alice Cooper 8-track episode because I've never done one before. Now I'll admit my collection is not complete. There's a couple at the end I just can't find, but I've filled it in pretty good. And I knew Mike would have an abundance, and in some cases, like the more popular albums, multiples. So I invited him back. He was up for it. And Mike, I think this is going to be a fun episode. You've already shown me some very very strange
Yeah.
versions of the 8 tracks, the albums on 8 track.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Tim. This is my third time on, and I look forward to it. I enjoy getting the message from you. Anytime there's a direct message that says, like, thinking about doing an episode on, my answer is always going to be yes. So I think there's lots of different things that we can talk about with Alice Cooper. So anytime you feel like going down that road or having a group discussion or anything at all, I'm always game.
All awesome, awesome. Yeah, I finally, I narrowed down a few titles that I just hadn't gotten around to. I actually found a couple cheaper than they had been. So I thought, yeah, see if Mike wants to do this. And Mike's got so many 8 tracks. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Mike start, go through each of the titles, and then when he gets to the one copy that I have of a particular album, I'll hold mine up. So, you know, and he's going to have some titles that I don't have, particularly towards the end. But I know for a fact he's got a European compilation that I don't have on anything. I've got the material on it. I just don't have it in that form. So I guess we'll get started, Mike. With as far as I know, unless there's a sampler of some sort, I mean, we have to start with the first album, "Pretty's for You," right?
Credits for you. Yep. And I have, I don't have a ton. I would say I have quite a few 8 tracks, I guess, compared to what most people maybe have. I mean, a lot of people probably don't have much in the way of 8 track collections. I don't even have an 8 track player. I did at one point. Um,
Same here. I don't have a
and had
working
a
player
few that
anymore.
got chewed up. And even if I had one now, there's a few I have that I wouldn't even bother trying to play
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
I want to collect them and not have them chewed up.
Purely for collecting purposes. Yep.
Yeah, but there are a ton of 8 tracks out there in terms of different cartridge colors from different countries and things like that. So I certainly don't have the vast array of variants in 8 track form that I do for, say, vinyl. We've talked about this before. I got about, I think at last count, 46 copies of Pretty's for You, 46 or 48 copies of Easy Action, because there's so many between straight and Warner Brothers, and then reissues and colored vinyl and everything else from all
Yeah.
the different countries, right? For all of these titles, that being the completest. And someday I might get around to being a bit more completist with my 8 track collection, but I have between 2 and 4 of most of the titles, except for a couple of
I'd
the rare
I'd
ones.
call that pretty good. But you know what? You're right, because even within almost the same 8 track issue in the same country, you might have a different shaped mold.
Yes,
So
that as well. And certainly there's a few of these, Tim, that are definitely on my want list in Discogs, and I search for them on eBay, search for them on a few different kind of auction sites that I've bought a few things from before. Some of them I'll probably never find. Pretty's for You is one of them, in which I have a couple. I have this one here, which is a gray, I believe, a gray cartridge, like gray shell. This would
yeah,
be
I
a
think that's the
US.
one I have.
That looks like the same one you have. Yeah.
Yeah. So on the side it says
Yeah, that's
got
the
all
exact
that.
same one.
Yeah.
So this one here is available in, I believe, probably four different, or three or four different colors. I know it's available in I don't know if this is considered white or if it's considered gray. But this is more of a light gray cartridge. I believe it's also in available in pure white. It's also available in a standard black cartridge as well, and also a yellow cartridge, a US yellow cartridge.
Yeah, and this is a U.S. This is definitely a U.S.
That's the
issue because
US,
it's
yeah.
got Warner Brothers Burbank. So yeah, cool.
The only other pretties for you I have right now is a Canadian copy. Canadian copies are always really easy to tell because for the most part, they really went with yellow cartridges for Canada.
Yeah, you'll
I've
see.
got
We'll see a couple of those. Yeah,
Yeah, I've got the entire group years collection, 69 to 73. I've got the entire Canadian set. They all have yellow cartridges, and I haven't seen one with a white or black or any other colored cartridge itself. They all come with a bilingual outer sleeve.
yeah,
Another way that you can really tell that it's Canadian. They always have the, and then most of them all came with this colored stripe down the right hand side. It
yeah,
had
yeah,
Warner Brothers logo with 8-track stereo on it. So you can, from across the room, if you're at a record store and you see a pile of 8-tracks, you can really notice the Canadian ones because, again, same kind of design. The the strip down the right hand side. Oddly enough, it's weird with a lot of the Canadian cassettes from this era, from the straight years, like the Pretty for New and Easy Action. The cassettes they lifted the exact artwork from the 8-tracks over to the cassette J card,
yeah.
which is really weird because it's like it'll be split into like programs, program 1, 2, 3, like with programs 1 and 2
Yeah,
on one
I have
side
seen
and three
examples
and
of that.
four on the other side. Makes no sense because there's only two sides to a cassette, but they lifted the artwork. So the Canadian ones are really easy to tell. Now for Pretties for You, um, one of the cartridges that is definitely on my holy grail want list is the very rare first issue straight records. So with no mention of Warner Brothers at all, kind of like there is a Canadian there's a Canadian cassette or sorry, U.S. cassette for straight records. Pretties for You. It's the same with um, the 8-tracks. It comes in a really unique pink pinstriped outer sleeve. And I believe from the photos I've seen, the cartridge is like this electric blue color. Like it's really wild. I've
Wow.
got a couple of collector friends. One that I know of, Charles Edmonds over in London, UK, who recently acquired one. And I know I've seen on some of the Facebook groups one or two other big time collectors that have them. But it's one of those things where you go on Discogs and it says like like one person has, or two people have,
Yes.
and you kind of get a sense then on how long it might take you to maybe acquire one, if ever. But that is one of the ones I hold out, some sort of hope for that I will actually find the first issue of Pretties for You. The Warner Brothers version is available in black, white, yellow, and gray. Like I said, I believe so. I've only got the one of them, and again, maybe someday I'll see if I can complete all the colors. And there's so many things that I collect, and it's tough to get all the different variants of all of them. I started with vinyl. I went on to cassette. I've got quite a few cassette variants. Maybe when I complete all the cassette variants of all the different titles that I'm after, maybe I'll go on then and start filling some of the holes in the 8-track collection. But not for now. There's too many things that I'm after and too many other places to spend my money. But as you know, I love this album, and I'm happy to have at least a great copy of a U.S. and Canadian copy of
Now,
Pretty.
not to get too far off track, but you got me thinking about something. Do you have any reel to reels?
I don't. I don't
Because I
have any.
have seen that Alice is one of the a band that I like. I have seen reel to reels
Yeah,
of like Love It to Death and Killer and Schools Out, but I don't have any of those. To me, that's like a step beyond 8-tracks because they've never. Anytime I see one, they're always 200, starting at 250 or
they're very,
and
very expensive. I
yeah,
know a few people who, there's a couple of accounts I follow on Instagram. I believe one of them is Analog Archaeology, I believe might be the handle. He's a reel to reel guy. He
yeah,
fixes them, he splices them, you know what I mean? Like he's got the setup. Like his room is just an audiophile's dream, right? Like every piece of
wow,
equipment that he has, but he has an actual reel to reel and will transfer them onto reel to reel. So I mean, again, above and beyond what I do. So
wow,
not having that knowledge and not having anything to play it on, not that I have an 8-track player either, but it's pretty easy to collect square cartridges, and
Yeah.
But the reels, they do come up. They're on eBay from time to time. There's a couple on Discogs now. I've been tempted to pull the trigger just because you got that nice big artwork there. I believe there's a killer. There's a killer on Discogs right now, but they're always several $100s. The boxes are usually pretty beat up for how much people are asking for them.
The problem I run into, because I've seen us like, I should get a Kiss one or an Aerosmith one or something. And I always come back to you. I know myself too well. If I get one, I'm gonna
Well,
want,
exactly. Yeah.
so I said I can't even go there. I'm just curious about that because it's like the one thing beyond 8 tracks, because I didn't even know that they put albums out on pre-recorded albums out on reel to reel. I think that the first time I was made aware was Dale Sherman's um, his first book on
The
Illustrated
collector's
Guide,
book.
Dallas
Yeah.
Cooper, and there
Yeah.
was a picture of a killer one. I'm like, I had no idea I knew they used, I mean, reel to reels used extensively in radio and recording. I just didn't
Um,
know they had pre-packaged albums with in a little box. And
I
I thought
mean,
that is,
they'd be really cool display pieces because
yeah,
of the size of them. If you had a shelf, I'm just looking at your room behind you there. Imagine a shelf with a
they're a
handful of
little bit,
favorite.
they look to me like they're a little bit bigger than a CD,
Yeah,
smaller than a record, but yeah. And
yeah. I think they're a little small. They're a little smaller than a record, but still fairly large. Like I've seen them before at record fair, not Alice Cooper ones, but I've seen
I've seen,
fairs.
the only ones I've ever seen out in the wild are like musicals, you know what I mean? Like from the
Yeah,
40s.
yeah. Sound
Yeah.
of Music and stuff. Yeah,
So,
but I mean,
but
it would be
anyway,
cool to have a
back,
shelf and have kind of the big five from Alice, like Love It to Death to Muscle of Love, because they do pop up, and
yeah,
there's even there's the quad version of both Billion Dollar Babies and Muscle of Love that'll pop up
yeah.
on the reel, that has some different kind of abridged artwork, kind of with you know quadraphonic written across the top. So maybe someday, Tim, if I win the lottery, Tim, I'll get into all that stuff. But
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, we can. There's so many rabbit holes we can go down. Let's stick with Alice,
stick with eight
eight
tracks,
tracks,
okay.
which brings us up to the second album, Easy Action.
Easy Action. So for Easy Action, I've got three here pulled out. I thought I had more, and I may have a few more down in a box in the basement. Some of my stuff is just all over the house. So, um, but I've got a really nice condition US. This would have been a reissue.
That
Uh,
looks like the same one I've got.
yeah. So this would have been the first first Warner Brothers issue.
Yeah.
Um, to my knowledge, again, if anybody out there watching this is like, no, it's not, it's issue number two, whatever. I think that it's the first, this would have been the first reissue. I know that there is no straight, unlike Pretty's for You, there is no straight records only version of Easy Action. This was around the time because all these came out a year after the albums came out, at least according to Discogs and the other research I've found. Like a lot of the 8 tracks would come out the year after. Like so,
Oh, really?
yeah, the dates on all of the Easy Action um, 8 tracks say 1970, not 1969. They say 1971 for Easy Action. That they say 1972. A lot of them for. So I don't know if it took a
That's
while to get that format out or what it was, but usually
that's
it's a year
weird. I
after.
think they must have caught up at one point and come out
They
just
may
at the
be
same
caught up at
time
one
as
point,
records, but
but when we get to the end of some of the last ones of Alice's, they're back to, at least according to Discogs and some of the information, even on things like the Sick Things UK website, they were showing a year after. For things like Special Forces, it's showing 82 instead of
yet
19
they've got the same catalog number,
catalog number. Yeah.
except for
So
the
again,
prefixes. It's interesting,
who
fascinating,
knows?
and also the thing about 8 tracks, you people will notice they do take liberties with the artwork
Absolutely. Yeah.
because it actually says Easy Action. And correct me if I'm wrong, that's the back cover, isn't it?
That is the back cover image. Yeah.
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 So cool.
So this would have been, so although there isn't a straight records, because at that point, if we are a year behind, and again, one of the reasons I thought maybe it was because by then it would have been you would have been seeing some Warner Brothers alongside of it, right? There's those years between the straight records years and the full on Warner Brothers where you got the Warner Brothers Shield and the straight records
Yeah.
ruler with the
The
little the little thought
thought
bubble.
balloon or whatever.
Yeah.
Or, Yeah.
So there is a version of Easy Action that is a straight / Warner Brothers co-branded cartridge. On the back, it says Straight Records and big labels, but next to it are the Warner Brothers and Straight Records logos combined. The odd thing about that one is that it comes in the paper sleeve that it comes in, the outer sleeve has just got like 3 logos. None of them are straight, but it's got Warner Brothers, it's got Reprise, and it's got Seven Arts. So it's
That
got
would
a
have been a
big W,
generic.
got
Yeah,
a
that
big
would have been the
W7 up
generic
top, and then
Warner Group slipcase for them.
yeah. So the slipcase has every kind of extended family member of the Warner's group at the time, Warner
Yeah.
Reprise, Seven Arts. But the cartridge itself on the back of that one, unlike this one that has the programs, the songs listed on the front of it, on what I believe would be the first issue, this co-branded one, it's on the back, so it's a wraparound label. So you
Yeah.
get just the large picture of the boys on the one side, and then on the other side, on the flip side, would be all the song information, and then Straight Records, Warner Brothers, Seven Arts. So because that one has both and it's co-branded, and this one just has the Warner Brothers, I'm saying this one is probably the second issue. The one
Yeah. Yeah.
that would be
It's
the
really
first
like
issue.
I have a hard time determining what are reissues unless it actually has the year of the reissue. But when you have information like a sub label and then just the main label, that's a pretty good way of
Yeah,
it's a
you can
pretty
kind of put
reliable
them,
way of saying this is obviously a reissue.
you can kind
And
of
I
put them in order yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're going to have some of the Warner Brothers ones, like from Canada, that have a very different look that are reissues too. But we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah. Speaking of Canada, I do have an Easy Action Canada
Yeah,
again, like the Pretties for You. We've got a nice yellow, bright yellow cartridge, and these all say manufactured and distributed by We Canada on them. So again, easy to tell. Just like the last one, it's got the 8-track stereo blue bar down the right hand side of the label, yellow cartridge. So all of the ones from Canada until we get up to greatest hits for Canada all have that 8-track stereo bar.
that's
The
when they
premium one I have,
stopped doing that, and then the 8 tracks had a different look. Because I've got Fleetwood Mac and Deep Purple 8 tracks that look like that too, but
yeah, okay,
only early '70s ones.
right. So maybe around 73, 74 when the greatest hits came out is when
Yeah,
we got rid of that
and
bar.
for that matter, I think I've also got a couple of Led Zeppelin ones. So maybe it might have been. So when it says WEA, that's Warner Electra Atlantic. It's the
Atlantic,
entire
yeah.
Warner group.
Yeah. The third one I have for Easy Action is just this weird one. So before we pressed record here and got on live on the air here, you and I talked about some of these weird ones. So this one
Yeah.
is American Entertainment Company, and there's a thousand
Yeah.
of them with different artwork on them, right? Like, I mean, you'd have to be a nut job to be a completist to go
Yeah.
to that level.
None of
But I
them are
do like
official.
yeah,
They're
I do
all
like
they're all
having a weird one every now and then in my
yeah,
collection.
they're all bootleg ones. Although that one's interesting. It's got an interesting enough cover on it because I've seen ones that just have very generic artwork, and I've seen the same artwork for completely different groups.
Yeah. And I have seen this artwork. It's people dancing with the music bars. I have seen this for some other bands as well. So
Yeah.
it was artwork that was used by American Entertainment Company. It's got the titles, 4 programs, obviously. It does have a note saying, notice of intention for copyrighted material filed where necessary. All statutory royalties have been or will be paid. I just like the way that they phrase it. It's kind of
Could they
like,
make it any more vague? Yeah,
what is that whole it's better to beg forgiveness than ask permission kind of thing?
the office for that company was a pickup truck with the motor running.
Yeah, exactly. So the next one up would have come out in 1973, but I'll talk about it now because it's the School Day.
Yeah. Yep.
This was a UK variant. I believe there's only a UK variant for this one because this one didn't come out everywhere. There was no American double LP that came out for School Days. It was only, there's German. I have a German promo and LP. I have and stock. I have stock and promo UK LPs, and then it was available, I believe, in Australia. Like a handful of countries outside the US. This one is factory sealed, but without slipcase. So. And I've seen a few of these online that are factory sealed, and it's they're all the same. They don't have a slip case and then factory sealed with cellophane. They're almost just shrink wrapped, but it still has like the little thing on the top that says remove before playing, like the cover on it. So this is you know, dead stock mint. Again, I have no reason to open it, but obviously a double play cartridge. It's got two albums on there, Pretties for You and Easy Action. And I've always loved this release because I love both those albums, and I love
That's a
the
cool cover too. I don't
yeah, it's
have that
very
on it.
cool.
Yeah, I don't have that on anything, but yeah, I've definitely seen it before. But it's a cool cover, and I think I think my understanding is they released that in countries where the first two albums never came out.
Yeah, and it coincided with the band being
Bigger.
having made it, right? You know,
Yeah,
being a successful band now, so
yeah,
cash in on that opportunity, right?
absolutely.
Okay, next we get into Love It to Death. I have three copies that I've pulled for this. One is the Gray Shell US
Yeah,
version, same as the Easy Action that we talked about a little while ago. Again, most of these titles seem to be available in white, gray, black, and yellow in the US.
yeah.
Um, I know that I've seen them in the black ones are quite easy to come by. There are UK variants I've seen for Love It to Death, Killer, Schools Out, that have green, red, blue cartridges, a lot of different colors that I found. And I thought I had a green one in my collection, but I can't find it now. So either I misplaced it or it's in one of my boxes. But I know on Discogs, if you go in and look at some of these titles and then filter it out by 8-track, you will see you'll see a rainbow of colors that are available in some European markets. So UK seemed to be one that had. I know that there's a killer red cartridge that's really nice because it's got the snake, artwork, which is already in that red kind of tone, and it's on a
Yeah, yeah.
blood red cartridge. And
That'd be very striking.
yeah, there's some
Yeah.
really striking colors that are used over there. But so that would be your standard US release. Again, here we are with Canada. These
That's
Canadian ones I picked up
mine,
in
I
one a
think.
lot. Yeah, so that'd be the same. Yeah, I
It's
picked up
interesting
a
that
lot.
I have a few like this where the title is in quotations
Yeah,
for
yeah,
some reason. My Led Zeppelin Houses of the Holy is like that. It's like, what do you mean?
air quotes.
Yeah. And I will note it. I don't know about your US one, but this one has the finger on it. This has
Yeah,
got the finger coming through.
yeah. So is this. Yeah,
Yeah. Guess they figured it was small enough to be safe.
a small enough appendage that nobody will notice.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got the bar. We got the bars on these all seem to be blue until we get up to Billion Dollar Babies. They made it green. Maybe that was a decision they made because of the green color of the album cover. But again, we've got the
I think it
tracks
was
variant.
I think it was just all of them that came out at that time because I've got some green ones and blue ones with other
Yeah,
bands too.
yeah. And then I've got one that I showed you again before we went on air. That's another one of these weird. And again, there's a ton of these. If you were to just go into Discogs and type in any of these titles, for in this case, Love It to Death, and type in a track cartridge, especially if you then click on unofficial as one of your kind of cues, you'll find a ton of these that I don't even know what to call them: bootlegs, unofficial,
Um,
all of the
yeah,
above.
it's interesting because I think terminology is important, but bootlegs is usually almost always referred to a live recording. Um, and then you get into something called, counterfeits, but I wouldn't call those counterfeits because to me, a counterfeit would be one that was made to look like a legitimate release.
Right. Yeah.
So, so
Whereas this one's
these,
clearly just unofficial, whoever Royal Falcon. And I've seen that label. I've seen other, like there's other, I've
yeah,
seen Led Zeppelin, I've seen ZZ Top, I've seen other
yeah.
bands with this
Somebody
exact
had
same label.
somebody
Uh,
had one of those dual, 8-track recorders, just like a dual cassette, and they took the vinyl or they had the 8-track and they just made a bunch of copies of it because you could buy, for those that don't know, you could buy blank 8-tracks just like you could buy blank cassettes.
Cassettes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Memorex and Sertron and all
Oh
those
wow.
companies
That,
sold them.
that that I didn't know. So yeah, somebody had a van and a lot of them.
Yeah,
This one
just
might
pumping them
be
out.
the most unofficial of the unofficial because a couple of the other ones that we talked about, the American Entertainment Company, Easy Action one at least has, whether you believe it or not, the kind of the mice type on the bottom that says statutory royalties have been or will be paid. This one's got nothing, man. This one is just like love it to death. Here's your songs. We're Royal Falcons.
Yeah.
So as unlegit as you can possibly get, but and again, tons of these online. I haven't gone down the rabbit hole of trying to find every unofficial. I've done that for I have a lot of cassettes where I have unofficial versions and things because the artwork in Taiwan is just like super interesting and the typos I
Yeah.
find interesting. But for these where they're really plain cartridges, there's not really much point going down those rabbit holes and trying to be the completest on those. But it is nice to have a few to just kind of round out the collection. So next we get into Killer, of course, my favorite group album, and we've got our standard US gray shell. Again, same color, same notes go for all these: white, gray, black, yellow. And again, in a lot of European countries, you get the green cartridge, the red cartridge, the blue cartridge. Again, I wouldn't mind picking up some of those. Some of the titles like Killer, which is my favorite group album, I might go and try to round out that a bit more. I've done that with cassettes. I've probably got a couple of dozen different Killer cassettes because it's my favorite, release by the band.
And cassettes, I find cassettes and 8 tracks, because of the nature of them, they look so different from me. Like different issues look so different from each other. Whereas vinyl, you really got to look at what you've got to see what you've got. But cassettes, right away, you know, well, that came out in the 80s.
Absolutely.
That was,
Yeah. Well, especially with some of the Alice Cooper's early, we're getting into, 69, 70, 71. You got slip, for Killer, I've got slipcase, I've got snap case.
Yep.
The clamshell, the clamshell case, and then first issue J card, and then one that is reissues, slight differences in the J cards and things like that, right? But you kind of know that the snap came before the, you can kind of put it together and figure out first, second, third variations. Of course, we got our Canadian Killer. These Canadian ones I picked up in one lot a few years ago. Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah. This is one. It's very rare for me to find good rock 8 tracks in the wild. This is one I actually found at a record expo.
Nice.
This was fun.
And you notice, Tim, this one doesn't have Killer in quotations. So again, no
So it's like I don't know where the difference is.
no consistency on whoever's typesetting this stuff. And then for this one, I pulled out a couple of different. Again, same kind of thing. We've got two versions of completely unofficial. Although this one has a lifetime guarantee, Tim. So this unofficial pirated copy will last you a lifetime.
Of all the things to put a lifetime guarantee on, I would never put one on an 8-track.
Yeah. Yeah, so this one is Lunar Lifetime Rock is what again.
I see what you mean though. Like the artwork is so bizarre, it's almost worth picking them up.
Totally. And the next one as well has a catalog number DAD 308, but again, I'm sure that it's not
could be anything, right?
Yeah.
And like the label actually looks typewritten.
Yeah. And this one this is just in a Canadian case.
Yeah.
Not Canadian, but Audio Pack is the only thing written on the cartridge itself. So unofficial, but again, I have a few different versions of Killer because I do love the album so much that it might be one that I go down the rabbit hole and try to get a few more unofficial, just because it's a favorite of mine. 1972 School's Out. I just have the USA.
That is an RCA Music Service version.
Yeah. Okay. So you can tell by the.
I just tell by the whole design of it. The cover's a little smaller, and then it should say on there somewhere. It's Warner Brothers, but it should say manufactured by RCA Music Service on the front or the back.
I thought this one looked different. It might be some sort of a club edition, although it doesn't.
Yeah, it's definitely an RCA Music Service club edition.
Okay.
Maybe right underneath the cover art.
Yeah,
don't know. I don't.
says Warner Brothers Records, Burbank, California. It's got a couple catalog, there's some catalog coding numbers and made in USA.
Is there somewhere on there, Mike, where you see a set, like there's the Warner Brothers catalog number, but then there's like an S and
Yes,
six numbers?
yes.
That is the RCA Music Service. Like if you had their catalog,
Okay.
that's what they refer to that album as.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. I know
Awesome.
way too much about this stuff.
In that case, Tim, on the fly, I'm putting my RCA. I had a spare RCA.
That's probably what it would have come in, because what they did, what RCA Music Service did is they made, no matter what the original label was on, they made it look like it was on RCA Records. Likewise, Columbia House made everything look like it was on CBS.
Right. Gotcha. Very interesting. And then of course the Canadian one. So just got the Canadian and the RCA. Glad we
Oh
solved that.
wow! So I've actually got one. I've got just a regular US retail one,
Yeah, and you know what? I thought I had more than the two, but that's all I could find for today.
and this has a wraparound label,
Yeah,
and this is pretty typical of the Warner Brothers.
yeah, yeah. I've got that
So
design for
I
sale.
like it because the cover is really really big. Like the cover's a little
Yes.
bit bigger than a lot of them. So
Yeah. No, I like the
so
ones I like the ones where the programs are on the back and you get the full, more real estate on the front to get in some of the, especially, some of the album cover designs were just so great back then.
yeah, they have to,
$1 million
yeah,
labels
sometimes they have
closed
to
out,
crop them so much that yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter anyway, because with 8 tracks, if you were playing them, half the tape's stuck in the machine anyway, so you can't look at it.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. Yeah. The butt end is gone.
yeah,
Hey, $1 billion babies. Again, just a couple. The $1 billion. This one is like the schools
yeah,
up.
got that one too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not yeah. Again, it's cool to see the artwork a little bit bigger.
Yeah. Exactly. And then we've got our yellow cartridge Canadian one.
Yeah,
Again, we've got the green bar down the side now.
it does look nice with the yellow. Looks like the yellow cartridge mixes with the green well too.
It does. Yeah. And then we get into the group's swan song. So again, we've got a standard American.
Yeah, I got that one here. Mine was owned by a guy named Rick, because he wrote his
Rick.
name up in the corner and marked it. Thanks, Rick.
So
This
and
is
then-
actually one of it's for some reason this is actually one of the more common ones. I don't know why. But
yeah. And I do have a sleeve, a full picture sleeve for this one somewhere for sure, because I went and looked back through my Instagram, and when I posted it a number of years ago, I had it in and out of the sleeve, but I've misplaced the sleeve. But I do have the full "do not bend, avoid excessive heat," which is kind of cool. That it's got the full on kind of a portion. It's got the girl flexing and the "do not bend."
the slip cases are interesting because at a certain point, I write about this in my Unspooled book. The slip case would be the only thing that had artwork on it. So that's why you see what I call naked 8 tracks.
Yes.
Which you'll see these 8 tracks that don't have any artwork on them, but they're not bootleg, they're not fake, they're not manufactured by some small company to for no money to Warner Brothers. They're legitimate 8 tracks. It's just that the slipcases tended to get thrown away.
Right.
But sometimes the artwork was on both. I don't know what the difference was.
How very odd. I have one of those naked for Welcome to My Nightmare.
Yeah.
That I don't
Probably
have
is it a pink?
It's pink, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the Atlantic ones around that time were pink.
That's awesome. It's a cool color cartridge, so I like it.
Yeah, it is. I've got Bad Company. I've got some Yes. Yeah, a lot of them were pink in the mid-70s.
And then speaking of pink, on the Canadian Muscle of Love, we've incorporated.
That's very cool.
Pink.
And that actually uses the paper bag as the artwork as opposed to the US copy.
Yeah. As opposed to the "do not bend."
Yeah.
Yeah, which would be the back of the LP.
Yeah.
The song listing. So This one has and it doesn't read it extremely well. Like this contains, one Alice Cooper Muscle of Love type is a little bit tough to read but I do like the color combination.
Yeah.
On the yellow cartridge, the pink and then the 8-track stereo bar has now been kind of a pale blue. A nice color combination. It is an attractive looking cartridge, that one. And then the real band swan song, I suppose, would be Greatest Hits, which I've got a
Yeah.
couple. Standard US.
Yeah, that's the one I've got.
Yeah.
Mine was owned, by the way, by Greg Ellis. I know this because he wrote his name on it.
That must have
And
been a
this one
common
must have
practice,
been, this one must have been, I'm guessing, that lasted in, like, say, maybe to the mid to late 80s, where a store had old stock and they're trying to get rid of it because the serial number is, they took
Uh,
they didn't take a chunk out of it, but they scratched over the label, almost like you'd do to a barcode so it wouldn't scan.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, and it's not in bad shape. So I'm guessing this one was sitting in a store rack for years and years and years.
yeah. And then my Canadian copy of Greatest Hits is the first one that again, that 8-track stereo bar down the right hand side has now
Yeah.
disappeared.
So that tells me that that's when that changed. Now the question is there a version of the greatest hits in Canada with that 8-track stereo strip down there, or had they stopped making them like that when this came out?
Yeah. And probably pretty easy to find out on Discogs. And again, if I were to go into my Discogs right now and look at my want list, I probably have a few of these flagged, and I probably know the answer to them. I'm just forgetting because I do have several hundred items on my want list at any particular time.
My want list is mostly 80s era 8-tracks that will probably never
Yeah,
pop up missing, and it's like there's 7 people that have them and 88 people that want.
yeah,
So
totally. And then this one we talked about a little bit before we went on air as well. This is a really weird one. And I've
yeah,
seen this same track listing, but with some different artwork on some other Facebook.
I've seen that artwork on things, but this one's really interesting because it's Alice Cooper and others.
Yeah, so like we were saying, it lists each song and then the artist. So Under My Wheels, Alice Cooper, Caught in a Dream, Alice Cooper, and it's obviously not Greatest Hits, right? We're looking at Fields of Regret, Still No Air, Refrigerator Heaven. So a ton of stuff off Pretty's for You and Easy Action, none of which were hits. So it's just a collection of early 69 to 71 songs, as up to Love It to Death and Killer. Um, all of them list Alice Cooper as the artist, except for one, Hello Hooray, in which it's listed as Simulation, which again, I wasn't sure exactly what that meant. I've thought it before, and I'm not sure if I've even looked it up. I think I tried to Google it and figure out what it was, and maybe didn't get an answer. But for me, it's kind of a weird one because this one has that same royalties have been paid kind of messaging on here. But if that's the case, and the rest and all the others are the actual Alice Cooper songs, then what does Hello Hooray Simulation mean?
Well,
Uh,
now, but
is it the songwriting? Is it, because
Hello Hooray was written by
it was written by
um,
Rolf Kemp
Rolf
for
Rolf. So
yeah, it could have something to do. It could have something to do with that not being written by the Alice Cooper group whatsoever.
oh, there you are. One of us froze up there for a second, but
Yeah,
we're back.
I saw that. Okay. Yeah, it could be something to do with that. I didn't think about that before, but that was written by Canadian Rolf Kemp for um, Judy Collins.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why. Maybe that's why they had to put a simulation in there because they couldn't get away with the.
Just a thought, Mike. Is there any chance that that might be French? So it's like simulation, which is like the French word for a cover version.
Maybe, but it's everything on here is U.S. Like it's not Canadian at all. It's
Oh,
got
okay, so that's
U.S.
probably not
copyright.
it.
It's got U.S. Copyright Act, Title 17, United States compliance. So everything on here is, but yeah, good call. Simulation.
Yeah. Huh.
Now I got to look up and see what cover tune means in French. Okay, we get into the solo years. Um, and so these here are two Canadian versions that look like they're the same at first, but when you get into the type at the bottom,
Okay. Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
slight differences.
Yeah. And I don't know. I'd be willing to bet the one that's uh, behind you is the newer of the two.
You know, both have the Atlantic logo in the same placement, the same sized artwork.
Yeah.
The type itself, the font, um, looks exactly the same in terms of the song titles. Just the manufactured and distributed by We Music of Canada is in a different typeface on one than the other.
Yeah.
One is
I'm just guessing. I'm guessing that the one behind is the newer one. I could be wrong. That's
and I didn't know.
fascinating though, because I mean, obviously this was an album that was successful enough to have another run, or well, maybe not so much the case in Canada, but I know that in the US, the reason you might have different colored uh, casings or even different shaped ones is there may be multiple pressing plants, right?
Yeah,
So they may have all come out at the same time, just from different plants.
yeah. One says tapes are sold for consumer use only. The other one just says tapes are for consumer use only. So there's some difference in the language on that bottom type, and again, just some different font styles and you know, one is centered in the in a more compact kind of paragraph, and another one is kind of typeset in longer sentences. So, and again, I didn't go out of my way to know that there were two different Canadian versions and buy them. What happened, I believe, was I had one already in my collection, and at one point I bought a lot
Yeah,
of
that
Canadian,
happens.
looking for one in particular, maybe that I
Yep.
was missing, but it came in a group of 8 or 10, and they were all in pretty good shape. So I just said, oh, what the hell, and bought the whole thing for $150 or whatever. Like I got a pretty good deal and got
Yeah.
a complete set of Alice Cooper, I think from 69 to 75, all the band years, plus greatest hits, plus Welcome to My Nightmare, all came in one fell swoop one day. So it was a nice little, I believe, eBay pickup. And then this is the naked one we talked about.
Yeah. See, that would have come with a. Let me show you a little bit. I'll show you a little bit about what it would have looked like if I can reach it here without damaging anything. But um, I'm pretty sure we would have had something very similar to this. So the first Bad Company and
Right. Okay. Yeah, there
Eight
you
Track
go.
looks just the same, right? So
There you go.
that this there somewhere, it's in a landfill somewhere,
And is that Atlantic? Are they on
Yeah,
Atlantic?
it's Swan Song Atlantic. So yeah, it would have looked
Okay.
just like this, and the cover art would have been on it. So
Yeah. I know I've seen, in my 8 track searches on eBay and whatnot, I know I've seen the pink cartridge for other bands for sure.
yeah,
But it'd be nice to know what the sleeve looks like for that, because I'd love to pick
yeah.
up a sleeve for that one and have the full Drew Struzan illustration, in all of its glory
It
on
would probably look quite,
it.
take up because this takes up, it starts here and it goes all the way down to,
Yeah,
all the way down to the bottom. So it would be a pretty good size.
yeah.
But yeah, I imagine it would be these dimensions here.
That'd be great. Having that, it's one of my favorite covers of the solo years for
Oh
sure.
yeah, yeah.
That Drew Struzan illustration. So it'd certainly be nice to try to find a slipcase for
So
that.
my Welcome to My Nightmare is this American one
Okay, yeah,
with. So this would be a later one, I
yeah,
think, because they would have done away with the slip cases would have just been your generic label ones, and they just would have gone ahead with this.
nice.
So
Alice Cooper Goes to Hell. I have two Americans that are exactly the same.
yeah.
So just two that yeah.
Now, do yours have the little like grip here? You see what I
Uh,
mean?
well, look at you, Tim. I have two different styles.
Yeah, see, the casings can be different.
Didn't even know
That's
that until you just pointed
yeah,
it out. So one has just it indents down with little ridges,
yeah, yeah,
and the other one has this, so you can really pull it out of the player.
yeah. That's what my Welcome to My Nightmare and Greatest Hits are like with the ridges on them. But yeah, this one's got, and on the back,
Uh,
it's got this little indent here. So yeah, like
yeah,
the hardcore 8-track collectors that just
absolutely.
collect the format, they look for things like that, right? Because this, I don't know where it ends.
Even
It.
even on the back, you can see the cut
Yep,
there, the cut here,
yep, very different. Yeah, that's
both
crazy.
different.
And so this says, yeah, audio pack. Oh, and Joe T had this because he carved his name into the back of it.
I guess that's what they did back in the day. Hey,
I
was
don't mind that. I think it gives it a certain charm. I
yeah,
don't like it when they write over the art, but
yeah. No, I've got a few uh, singles, like 7-inch singles that will have a name, or I certainly don't mind. I've got a few really interesting promo 7-inch singles that'll have what is like radio DJ writing, you know what I mean?
yes,
They'll
yep.
circle, they'll put a star, they'll even put like, KEXP, or what the name of the radio station, either a
Yeah,
stamp or written in Sharpie. And I'm like, I kind of like that because it kind
those
of
are cool.
shows
That's an
travel with
identifier,
the
right?
history, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I've got a yellow cartridge, but American, not the Canadian one, but this one's actually, it's quite nice. It's a yellow cartridge, pale yellow cartridge, more
That's a
pale.
Canadian one, Mike. That's definitely a Canadian. If the slipcase is America, that's a Canadian cartridge.
Okay, see, oh yeah, you're
I'm
right. You're right.
99% sure I've never seen an
Well, it's
American one
got
look like that.
nothing on here at all, and usually it'll say like either Kinney or We or something, right? Like a distributor that's Canadian.
I'm
Usually a
wondering if the
Markham or
original slipcase would
Scarborough.
have had all that information on it, but that has got to be a Canadian cartridge. There's
Okay.
not too many things in life I'm sure of, but
No, I think you're right because now I'm looking at what's written on the back of the cartridge itself and stamped right in is um, is Canada. Learjet Stereo Incorporated, Canada. So
yeah, I've seen
okay,
ones
there
like
you
that.
go. I
Yeah,
just assumed because I think when I got it, it had the wrong slipcover on it, which is
yeah,
American because if it was Canadian, it'd be bilingual. Although having said that, it's bilingual on the back, Tim. So I'm just full of it today. Okay, so I've got a Canadian one. I've got a
that's cool.
Canadian.
That's cool. And the
Uh,
green, like the green color where the song titles are written, is really cool because it matches the cover.
I actually
Or
thought that I was missing the Canadian one. I might have a full set of all up till From the Inside from Canada now because I thought that one was American because it didn't have that line about We Canada, the distribution line on there. So very interesting. So that would mean this one's Canadian.
oh
And
yeah,
again, doesn't say Canada on there on the bottom. Which all the group ones at least right up till Greatest Hits all had very prominently
yeah,
distributed by, and there's usually either a Scarborough, Ontario, or somewhere address, right? Um, but I guess it's just a different label design, and they must have changed the slip cases by then to just have 8-track and then just put the bilingual on the back because the back had
yeah,
French, but before it used to say 8-track in both English and French.
yeah. It's fascinating, and you know, and sometimes you'll see ones with stickers on them that has that information. I don't think there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it.
Very interesting. Okay, well, I'm happy I have so many Canadian ones. I think I have a full Canadian set now. Then maybe it's good to know.
My one copy of Lace and Whiskey was another one I found in the wild. Just looks like this,
Okay, yeah.
which
So
is
I have
pretty
one of
typical
those.
of
I have one
USA.
of those
Yeah,
factory sealed.
yeah, cool.
Looks exactly the same as that. Yeah. So this one's got the case and the factory. The factory cellophane. You can see the factory seal
Oh,
underneath.
there it is. Yeah, yeah,
So kind of cool. And then, although not Alice Cooper, it's still Alice Cooper related, and I thought I'd bring it up now because the same time that
yeah.
Alice was putting that out in 1977, The rest of the most of the rest of the band were off doing their ill-fated Billion Dollar Babies Battle Axe album, which the one and only album they put out and toured and quickly disbanded. But kind of cool to have this Polydor 8-track from that time period, just to kind of see what the rest of the Alice Cooper group original members were up to at that time in 1977. Alice Cooper show. Now, is that the one you were waiting on?
Yes. Yeah. Not that it's rare. I just never bothered.
No,
I
I
just
know it's.
I just figured I'd kind of that's one I could conceivably come across, but I never did. So I'm like, you know what?
Yeah,
I'm
which
just
is
going to
weird
find one.
when you said that to me, and I thought I had more. I've only got 2 copies, but I'm sure I had more than that at some point. And maybe I traded them, but I've got this American one,
Yeah,
which
that'd
I
be the
like. Yeah,
retail
and
one.
which I like. You know, again, the big label with the a good decent sized piece of art on it.
Artwork. Yeah.
And then I've got the Canadian version as well, the
Yeah.
yellow cartridge.
I have seen that one. I just, you know what it is? I think I've seen it. I've seen it before I was into Alice. And of course, you get into somebody's like, oh, I should have bought that when I had the chance.
Yeah.
So the only copy of the copy that I got is actually an RCA Music Service version. So you can see it's got the shrunken artwork,
Okay. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it looks like that on the. And so that stereo 8, you'll see that on RCA label
So you
8
really
tracks.
can't. Yeah, you really can tell the difference with RCA then when you
Yeah.
know kind of what you're looking for, right?
And then a lot of the Columbia House ones. I don't have any Columbia House of Alice, but it'll have the picture with like a blue square around. A lot of them will be like that.
Very cool. I think what we've just done, at the very least, what I've discovered is that 19 after in about 1975, at least the Canadian slipcovers changed.
Yeah.
Went bilingual on the back and not the front. So that was interesting to learn tonight by accident. Flush the Fashion.
Oh, don't forget From the Inside.
Oh yeah, got these out of order. Thank you, Tim. From the Inside. So we've got our Canadian.
Yeah. And again, the yellow kind of goes with the cover
Yeah.
for that one.
And then I think, yeah, I've got 2 copies of that. So this one's exactly the same.
Okay, yeah.
I think one's just in a little better shape. It has the slipcase. And then I've got a nice, beautiful sealed one of this one too, a US sealed version.
Yeah, that's the one I've got, a
Nice.
US copy.
And I love this art. I love this artwork. So
Yeah, nice big, nice
exactly.
big artwork on it. Unfortunately, it doesn't open up, right?
Yeah,
You lost
totally.
all of those sort of things, but
But yeah, nice to have a sealed copy of that one with the cellophane and the slipcase. Okay, now Flush the Fashion. I have a bunch of Flush the Fashions, and I think they're all the same.
I've only ever seen one variant of Flush the Fashion on
Yeah.
8-track. Yeah, they
Oh,
look a bit like this. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm sure there's a Canadian one, but I will say this. It's 1980, 1981, it gets increasingly harder to find Canadian 8-tracks, especially ones that aren't record club ones.
Right.
So I don't know if it's population, but they lasted a little bit longer in retail in the US than they did in Canada. Like for instance, I was looking for Van Halen Fair Warning, and there was a Canadian one, and it was like $150, whereas I could get a US one for like 25. So that just the difference in how common they are.
So the only one I've got, Tim, on my want list, there is a club edition of Flush the Fashion. That on the disc, I don't know if you can see that.
It's hard to.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me
So
I've got my computer here right in front of me. Why don't I just I'll type it in.
Yeah, it's on Discogs, and I know by the picture it was taken on the pink carpet of my friend Charles Edmonds in the UK, who's got a
Nice.
fantastic collection. So I always
That
know when he's the one who uploaded it. I always know it's him, and usually he'll post it on one of his social.
okay, yeah,
Uh,
that is a that's a RCA Music Service version because you can. It's got the S132778. That's the RCA
and
Music
yeah, and
branding.
actually, if I zoom in on that, it says manufactured by RCA Music Service under license, like right underneath the artwork, like you were saying. So
And if you see you can see right above there, there's a Canadian cassette that's red, where the printing is on the bottom of it's red. I bet you that the Canadian, if there's a Canadian 8 track for Flush the Fashion, that's what it looks like.
yeah. There isn't anything that I've got because I would have had it saved in my want list. So there's nothing
Yeah,
listed on Discogs anyway, as far as a
yeah.
Canadian, as far as a proper Canadian, Canadian cartridge. It would just be the US and then the RCA
Yeah.
US.
I would imagine it would have been. It's just nobody's uploaded one yet. I mean, I love the fact that Flush the Fashion was a gold record in Canada.
Yeah,
That right
yeah.
in the middle of that period where there were no gold records in the States, he had one gold record in Canada.
I love that cassette too, the Canadian cassette. I actually picked up a nice sealed copy of that one
You and I have talked about
earlier
this.
this year.
We've messaged back and forth. My struggle to find the cassette. I, I ended up getting a U.S. copy of it that's fairly beaten up, and it took me a long, long time to find a Special Forces
The
cassette.
Special Forces, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
I'm
that's where my
fortunate to
eight
have,
track. This is where my 8 track collection ends. I know you've got some to talk about.
I've got I've got one,
Yeah,
which
I'd
is
love. That's on my
definitely
want list.
one of my holy grail items. I'm not sure how many people, in the Discogs database have this, or how many collectors have it. I know a few collectors. Again, my friend Charles Edmonds picked up one, but only fairly recently, and he's been collecting a long time. And I think he finally came across one just in the last kind of 6 months, I want to say.
As of
Um,
right
but
now, I see 11 people have and 55 people want, and I'm one of them.
yeah, so I've got one that's in pretty decent shape, a little bit of bubbling on the label, but overall a very nice copy, and one that I'm super happy to have in my collection. I looked for one for years and years. I can't even remember where I got this. I got it about, I want to say, maybe 5 years ago. Um,
Okay.
Probably an eBay auction. If I was to guess, I think I might have been up against a few other people, but I remember getting it for a decent price, or maybe it wasn't even an auction. I just stumbled across it and grabbed it right away. But I
Yeah.
remember it being pretty, like I came by it and I owned it before too long. So like it came into my collection pretty quick.
The only other Special Forces 8 track I've seen is an RCA. I have seen an RCA music version of it. And I want to say it was almost like where this color is sort of a peach color. It was almost
Yeah.
gold.
Huh.
Um, and as far as I know, and you can probably confirm this, that's the last. Like, there's no zipper catches skin. There's no.
There's no, not to my knowledge, and I'm gonna say that there's not because I think I would know.
Yeah, they
Uh,
would have been so that the albums did not sell.
well, that's
So
the
it
thing.
probably wouldn't have made any sense for them to license them to Columbia House or RCA Music. Now, the only other in the 80s, the only other possibility, Mike, that you know, when people ask me, was this released on 8 track? Sometimes the best I can do is say, not as far as I know. And they say, what do you mean? I said, because I can't say definitively, but it would not be completely out of the question to learn that Constrictor was released.
Yeah, we've talked
Yeah,
about
on
that.
on
Man,
by RCA Music Service simply because um, Boston Third Stage and
yeah.
Kansas Power were both rock albums on MCA Records. I've got both of those on 8 track. They all came out
And
with
then right at
fall
the
of
same
'86.
same wheelhouse.
So that's the only other one I could think that might possibly be out there.
And I would love to for that to be proven right or to come across it. But much like the zipper, I think I would have seen one.
Yeah,
Like just the sheer amount of hours, I've been collecting for over
yeah,
25 years. And
yeah.
I know like all the big collectors in the world, like all the from every country. I can name probably the top 10 collectors. of Alice Cooper memorabilia and music in the
Yeah.
world. Right? There's a couple in the
Yeah,
UK.
that's why, like, if you don't think there's a zipper catch a skin, there probably isn't, because
I got
Warner
a couple
Brothers,
good.
there are Warner Brothers, like I've seen Van Halen Diver Down and Fleetwood Mac Mirage. Those are Warner Brothers albums from '82. I've seen retail versions of those, but again, Zipper Catch a Skin, it's late in the year. I think Warner Brothers was just letting him ride out his contract.
Well, yeah,
And if there were any made, the pressings would have been very, very small.
very very small, and even like I said, there's items I have that are pretty rare, but I managed to get one, and I know that
Yeah.
some of the other top collect, like the guys who are crazy, like the craziest collectors like me, will have a copy of them. I got a couple of really good collector friends who have a ton of stuff and a ton of variants, and Theta had one, or Thomas Fessler in Germany had one, or I've got a collector friend in Kent, Belgium, who's got everything. Nobody has one. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, for me, it's just I know that if you look at even like the Sick Things UK website,
I think I
it
know where
has
you're going with this.
it has one listed. In like it has one. It even has Warner Brothers 23719-4 as a catalog number, but no image available.
But you know something? That's a cassette. The Dash 4, that's the cassette.
Is that right?
Dash 1 is vinyl. When CDs came out, it was Dash
Okay.
2. So if that had been on 8 track,
Okay.
it would have said W823, whatever the serial number is. I'm just looking at my Van Halen 8 tracks. That's how it would have read.
Okay.
So that's a great website, but like that, the Dash 4, that's the cassette.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. Not that I thought it existed anyway. Again, no image available.
Yeah. And
For me is
the problem that can arise is that if somebody thinks they remembered seeing one, that creates a unicorn, something that's people are looking for something that was never made.
totally.
And I
I mean,
think that's the
it
case.
also
And
could have been. I think you and I talked about this before. It could have been one that could have was it maybe available but never got made. Like it had been planned to
yeah,
be.
it may have been on, the Warner's fall budget plan, run
Right.
off so many vinyl, so many cassettes.
Yeah.
They weren't CDs weren't really a thing at that point, and 500 8 tracks or something. It's like, no, don't bother with the 8 tracks.
Well, the records weren't exactly flying off the shelf, in 1982.
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
wasn't.
So, and
It
the 8
wasn't.
track was a dying format, and what's really weird, and a lot of it is the timing of when Alice took his hiatus, because the fascinating thing to me with these record club only 8 tracks, of which Alice has none, unless that Constrictor one turns out to exist. But I'm not saying it does. I'm saying that's probably the only one that might.
Right. Yeah.
But because Alice stopped recording in '83 and didn't start again until '86, and by 1986, the number of 8 tracks per year just shrunk considerably. It was just a die. It got to the point where it was basically country acts and pop superstars.
Yeah.
That was about it. And Alice, was just rebuilding at that point. So, unless MCA had a feeling that this might take off, I don't think they did. But
Yeah.
certainly, bands that put albums out in '83, '84, '85, '86, you'd be surprised at the 8 tracks that actually legitimately exist. But because Alice stopped recording when he did, and then like the mid
Yeah.
'80s, he basically took off and then came back. So there are no RCO Alice Cooper 8 tracks. The last known one that came out was still a retail one, which is Special Forces.
Do you, do you know if Twisted Sisters come out and play? Has an 8 track
Twisted
version?
Sister is one of those bands that don't seem to have any 8 tracks, which is odd because their label mates Rat do.
Yeah.
The
And the only reason I
EP
brought
and
it, the only
Invasion
reason
of
I
Your
brought it up
Privacy,
is
I know exist on 8 track, which is insane.
yeah.
They're two of my grails right there. I don't have them. Dokken Under Lock and Key is on 8-track. I don't have that one. The first Bon Jovi album, like there's crazy, crazy titles that exist on 8-track, but no Twisted Sister. I don't understand why, because Motley Crue Shout at the Devil exists. So it's not like bands like them weren't getting 8-tracks.
Yeah. And
And
that
they
was
sold a
80.
lot of copies, and Atlantic was licensing their albums to both Columbia House and RCA Music Service. So you think there'd be a chance that at least Stay Hungry would have been made, but doesn't seem to.
Yeah, weird. And the only
But I
reason
know what you're saying, because Be Cruel to Your
Be
School, that
Cruel to
would
Your
be our,
School,
yeah,
although not a great song, it would have been the only way you'd hear Alice on 8-track between
at that, yeah,
during that
yeah,
hiatus, right?
yeah, that's right. I'm trying to think if soundtracks, but no. Uh, like I doubt the Class of '84 soundtrack exists on 8-track, but
No, no. No, I'm not even sure there was a proper soundtrack for that. It was just he had a 7-inch single that was, from the Class of '84.
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
There's a lot there, there's Roadie on 8-track. There's
Oh yeah, yep,
Sergeant
yep,
Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band with the Bee
yep.
Gees. That's on 8-track.
Yeah, if you're out there, if you're looking to get every single thing, I would imagine it was on what, Chrysalis, though, with the Flash Fearless.
Flash Fearless. I'm sure
That's
that is. I've
I mean,
seen.
that's prime 8-track making
Yeah,
time, right?
yeah. I'm actually pretty certain that my friend Charles, who's got quite a few rare 8-tracks of Alice, I think I've
What's the
seen
one? Is it Medicine Ball Caravan, or
Medicine
was that?
Ball Caravan. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've got a sealed Canadian LP of that. It's
yeah,
got Black Juju on it.
yeah. And of course, I mean, to bring it right up into the present, there's another Alice Cooper 8-track I'm looking for from 2018.
It is.
Yeah, live at the AstroTurf. That is so cool.
Yeah, so this is a white cartridge. So there would have been a little over 400 of these total, because although they're all numbered, I have number 80 out of 100. There's 100 of each color. So there's 100 with the white shell, 100 with red shell, 100 with pink shell, 100 with black shell. Hand numbered, so that would have been 400. And there's a few promos kicking around. I think there's probably a few of each that I've seen that are marked promo. I have a promo cassette from Live from the AstroTurf, but
That's
my
awesome.
my 8-track is number 80 of 100 of the white. Again, like my friend Christopher Daniels in UK, I know, has, I think, a numbered and a promo of each of them. Like he's he at least has all four shell colors,
Yeah.
but might have promos of a couple of them as well. So just tons of. But he's also got one of the best Live from the AstroTurf collections I've ever seen. He's just dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of rare,
That is so cool.
confetti pressings and one of ones, and just all the cool things that they were doing back in 2018, when all that was first getting pressed on the Good Records label, before Air Music,
Yeah.
put out the more mass produced
Yeah, yeah.
versions
The
of it.
only 8-track I have from this century is the Cheap Trick, the latest from 2009.
Interesting.
So everything else is
You know
88
what?
and back.
There's a couple of people I've seen online that do that can make
Yeah,
eight
yeah.
tracks.
I've
I mean,
seen
obviously
that,
that's how
and
this got made, right? In
yeah,
2018. That's how.
I think it's cool. I don't have a player, and what I also like about, I've seen they make no attempt to make it look like it came out back in the day. If they put a Metallica album on an 8-track, they put their own label on it, and that's
I
very cool.
Yeah, there was one guy, and I'll send you his Instagram. If I can't remember it off the top of my head now, but somebody I either follow or have followed in the past or have seen in the past who does it. And I actually reached out to them, and he seemed super interested in doing this for me. What I wanted to do was a Blackout Years box set.
Mm,
So even though I have a Special Forces, have him do a Special Forces with me, maybe on a nice blue shell. Give me a zipper on a red shell, and give me a data on and but this guy was really meticulous with the artwork. He'll do custom box. He'll do a booklet to go
I know
inside.
exactly who you mean, and I can't think of the account, but I follow
Right.
him. Yeah,
We had a discussion, and then I think he was in the process of moving at the time, and then it kind of fell. I've never heard back from him, and I think quite honestly, I think he's busy as hell. And he made
yeah,
it sound like he was like 6 months out before he'd be able to think about this. but he was really interested in doing this blackout years. He said I could help him source some material in terms of photography and things like that from the era, and he could put together. I could almost write the contents, and he would kind of design a booklet to go with it, and have them
That
all
sounds.
housed in
I'm kind of wishing this existed. This
a
sounds
three
cool.
like a three cartridge set, right? And call it the
Yeah.
Blackout Years and do a custom cover for it. That's something I may do, but obviously nothing will replace the real
You know,
deal.
you could even go real crazy and do like a fourth cartridge. Do like was it Live at the Apollo
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
from
the Glasgow,
'82, and
yeah,
put
totally.
Identity Crisis and See Me in the Mirror on
Oh
there.
man, the Monster Dog. Those are still
Yeah,
still two of my favorite solo. And again, in a weird time, right? Where like between that Dada Constrictor kind of years, right?
yeah. I remember when I first got when I was first getting into Alice, one of the first things I got was the box set when Columbia House to the rescue once again. All their box sets were half price. So I
Yeah,
got the
yeah.
Life and Crimes of Alice Coop and Identity Crisis. As I laughed so hard when I first heard that, I'm like, what a
Oh
cool little
man,
song.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what? See Me in the Mirror, the other song from Monster Dog. Hands down, I'll fight anybody on this. It's hands down the creepiest song Alice Cooper's ever done in his career, band or solo. There's something about that song that if you turn off the lights and played that song at night, something would come through the mirror and get you. Like it is so bizarre, so creepy the way he whispers.
Yeah.
He
It
whispers the
it
lyrics
kind
to
of
it.
it would have fit on Dada.
It would have fit on Dada, absolutely. I feel like Identity Crisis would have fit on Zipper, and See Me in the Mirror would have fit on Dada for sure.
Yeah.
And of course,
So
the other song that didn't make the cut from Special Forces is "Look at You Over There Ripping the Sawdust from My Teddy Bear," which also made the 1999
which
Life and
which you
Crimes.
could put that on the Special Forces
Eh,
deluxe because
Absolutely.
all
Well,
of the original vinyl has it listed.
it does, and it should have been put on a reissue on vinyl. There's a collector's choice CD that has it on there as a bonus track. That and For Britain Only made it on there as
That's a
bonus
fun
track.
song too.
And
Yeah, there's a
again,
lot of great stuff from that period that's the not some non-album stuff worth seeking out. And
absolutely.
I'm a big fan of those Blackout albums too. As strange as they are, they're still tuneful. But
Yeah, I agree.
that's a look at a pretty extensive look at Alice Cooper's discography as it exists on 8-track. Anybody out there got something they haven't seen here? We'd love to know. Please let Mike know because he'll put it on his want list, and probably so will I. So yes, if you want to see one hell of an Alice Cooper collection, at Alice Cooper Collector on Instagram. And Mike's always sharing cool stuff from his massive collection. He'll answer your questions, and it's always good to have him on. So, Mike, thanks very much for coming on and talking about 8-tracks with me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Tim. Anytime.
All right, everybody. Thanks. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for watching Tim's Vinyl Confessions. Go listen to some Alice Cooper. We will see you later.